will.
Discord as well.
Just
So.
send me the link. Or I guess
Oh,
I could just
I
actually
do
never mind.
everything.
I forgot.
No, I got it. I got it. Not only will I pay you so I can produce your book and then promote you on my own dime,
media.
I'll
There we
get
are.
you the link.
I got it. I already got it.
Also.
I got it. I got it. It's too late.
No,
Nope, it's too late. I got it. You
I'll
can send
take
it. I'm
care
not
of
going to
it.
use it. I'm not even going to use it. You can send it. I'm not going to use it. Now let's see if I put it in the right place, unlike every other time on fucking Discord. Can people hear me on the Twitch stream
yes.
yet? Okay, never mind. I'm not going to say anything. I'll tell you later.
You kind of did.
Okay. Where
is my hairbrush?
Okay. I put it in the botched. What you call it?
Thanks, sir.
No problem.
All right.
Post.
I guess I could have put it on Wise and Nerdy and some other stuff. Oh well. Sad and 70. All right. Let's do this. I need some different music, but we're gonna go with the music I have.
Some music.
You know what? Y'all haven't done this season, at least where I'm caught up to in the
How are you enjoying the season so far?
Loving it.
Interesting.
Loving it. But y'all haven't done a Girl from Ipanema elevator joke. Y'all did those. It seemed like once a season, almost every season.
No, we did. We did one. I'm pretty sure when they were the coffee machine episode, when they were stuck in the elevator going up and down, I thought they made a comment about it. I could be wrong, but I thought they did.
It's possible, maybe. I just don't remember it.
Possibly.
Spooks
to Tuna.
Yeah. All right, here we go. This is Connections with Creators, and on tonight is old Dennis Robinson himself. I love your subtitle. Not too subtle.
Yeah, I know, right?
What's one of the number one things we preach at Dragon Con on the digital media track?
Always be hustling.
Close, but promote yourself, right? So if you stand up, to
my next guest is going to be make sure to pay Charles.
Yeah. So you're doing it. Dennis here, Kickstarter now live, likeandbook.com. Very cool. Spooks the Tuna's in supporting. That's awesome. Spooks. So I'm having you on tonight, sir, to talk about how you monetize a lot of what you do, including, if we get to it, even working outside of creating podcasts and how those talents have gotten you a day job. But really, sure. we are going to be talking about your Kickstarter, how you built it. This is your third Kickstarter, correct?
Yes, it is.
It's like in Solomon's Odyssey, book 3 is coming out, and you also do the bots. You'll have merchandise, and you have Patreon.
Yes.
Are there any other ways that you monetize over there?
For botched, so when we go to Dragon Con, we also have a merch table there at our live shows. So we have merchandise for that sort of thing.
Do you have an online store as well, or is it just live?
Yeah, no, the website also has an online store, and I've been kicking around the idea because Phil's been slapping me in the face with it the last 2 days of taking some botched stickers like the SCP stuff to conventions with me and selling those, because I have had a lot. Well, I've had a lot. So I put a little sign up on the table that says, "Do you like D&D or SCP? Stop and say hi I have a podcast.
Yeah.
And so people will come over to the table and they'll start flipping through my art book and other stuff. And they're like, where's the SCP stuff? And I have to explain to them, well, no, it's a podcast.
It says say hi. You got to talk to me, buddy.
No, you got to talk to me. But so there does not appear to be a whole lot of SCP related merchandise that's floating around at conventions. I see the ID badges every now and then, but that's about it. I don't really see a whole lot else. So it's like, okay, well, some of the new botch merch has SCP there in the logo. So maybe we'll take some stickers and, I can sort of do two things at once.
And how's that working out for you?
I haven't done it yet. he just started telling me that 2 days ago. So the next con, I'll start taking those stickers.
So, all right, let's get into all that. So this is about how to monetize your babies, right? The things that we create. We want to get paid to do what we do. And so it can be creating content as in digital creations of like streaming, podcasting, those kind of things. It can be, you do that. That's what we just kind of glossed over. We're going to get into details there with Botched, but you also do Lycan, which is a comic book, and you've learned how to monetize that, and you're going to conventions. So we'll talk about some of that and that aspect of things. My thing is too, where I want to go, I'm putting it out there to the DragonCon universe. One, Dragonites. I don't know. Is that what we call them? I don't know.
Dragonites? The Pokemon?
Yeah. That's no copyright. There's no copyright infringement whatsoever.
You chubby, small-winged dragons.
Yeah, but I would like to, I'm gonna start doing my research, but if anybody knows anybody, I'd like to talk to an agent who represents creators, even YouTube people, Twitch people, those kind of things. Because I think we're at that step of introducing some of that information to our universe here and at the con itself. Secondly, I want to put it out to everybody who's watching this after the fact or live that while I do interviews, that's my kind of con. That's what I love to do at DragonCon and any other con I go to, is sit down one-on-one and talk to people or moderate a panel where I can talk to 4 or 5 people. That's why you see it look like this every Wednesday night right now. However, I think it's, next week I'm out and TV's Travis is going to take over and they're going to do a special episode of their Highlander podcast and do it here live. And so that's a takeover. So he's doing the live show for here. So that happens at DragonCon, right?
Sure.
In a few weeks, we're going to have Sarah Rose take over with the Theater Kids, and they're doing fictional theater battle royale something. It's like the top, March Madness for fictional musicals out there. So that's like a panel, right? And that's what I want this to be. Connections with Creators is all about exactly what the con is, just done throughout the year in the digital format, so that we can all keep our touch to what DragonCon is for us, at least on the digital media track, which is creating panels, learning from panels, or sometimes just enjoying the conversation. So I want everybody to know that. So get in our Discord. Actually, I'll get that ready here. It is Linktree/DC Digital Media Track. Has everything we have there. So it's our Discord, it's our Twitch, YouTube, everything. But get in the Discord and come participate, come play, come, not just ask your questions in the chat, but you battle the fictional musicals. Thank you, Kung Pao Kirby. That's what is going to be coming up in a couple of weeks. Because they're doing part 1 somewhere, and they're going to do part 2 here, and it's going to be fun. So come make it look like your con. So one of the things we definitely do at the con is we talk about monetization and how to do that. So, Kung Pao Kirby is Sarah Rose. Because Dennis, how I feel about people changing up their names and trying to trick me on the internet.
Well, you are up there in age, so it's hard enough for you to remember names and keep
Get off
straight
my
anyways.
porch.
So,
all right.
Exactly.
No, I guess the digital version of that would be get off my space.
No one's on MySpace anymore.
No one's on my porch either, Dennis. For crying out loud. All right, here we go. So let's start with Lycan. So now, if you really want the ins and outs of it, for as little as $1 a month, you can go to patreon.com/HiveHead and you can pledge. And truth be told, I help interview Dennis throughout. Well, we usually do it like once a month, but we spread it out. But about the con life and what's going on with the business of the comic book, how he got his artists, how he got his writers, all the ins and outs that you want to know about everything he's done with this book. Well, that's over there on patreon.com/HiveHeadStudios. And like I said, I mean, Dennis, I don't think you're going to throw stones if somebody just says, here's $1 a month. I'd like to pick your brain. you know,
Oh,
because it's
yeah,
just
yeah.
one more thing in.
Yeah.
So you can do that. But tonight we're going to kind of gloss over that. We're going to hit the
Sure.
Kickstarter because it is active right now. Because
Okay.
Kickstarter can be for a lot of different things. This is your third one,
Yeah.
so it is bigger, and it is bigger as more tiers, more inclusion of
Sure.
prices. What have you? I'll just start with the end in mind. What have you learned from your first Kickstarter to now that can be applied? You would think that should be something that people should know.
So the main thing I personally have learned from the first Kickstarter to this Kickstarter, because I've done a dumb amount of research every time I've done each one of these Kickstarters. Like I've read books on them, so I've tried to avoid as many pitfalls as possible. Um, but the one thing that I didn't avoid in the first Kickstarter, and even to an extent in the second Kickstarter that I have managed to sort of fix for the current one, is to not have rewards that basically end up costing me more money than I'm getting for it, so to speak, because that then sort of defeats the purpose of what you're trying to raise money for. So, for instance, in the first Kickstarter, I was excited. I wasn't sure what to do for stretch goals and all that sort of stuff. So one of the stretch goals were hats. They're really nice hats. However, they're also very expensive. So like stretch goals are just bonus stuff that people just get for backing the Kickstarter. So it's not even like a
Yeah.
reward tier. Everyone just gets it. So essentially, anything you put as a stretch goal reward is just money you're just giving. You're just giving that stuff away essentially. So you don't want to have very expensive items for stretch goals, because then you're just eating into the coffers that you have just created through the Kickstarter itself. But like for the second Kickstarter, one of the rewards we had was a t-shirt. We always have a t-shirt. And this one was very simple. It was just a glow in the dark t-shirt with a symbol on the front and
Yep.
some text on the back. And I always set the price for the t-shirts at 25, not thinking anything of it. And when I went to the glow in the dark t-shirt company and, got a quote, the quote didn't end up being what it cost in the end. And so I had charged 25 for each shirt, but it ended up costing me $30 for each shirt. So I
Oh,
lost
wow, that hurts.
$5 every time somebody backed at a level that got a t-shirt. So it's one of those things that I've learned over time. So now for this one, I had all these different ideas for rewards and stretch goals and all that jazz. And so I made a spreadsheet and it said, okay, this is how much it will cost me per piece for this, like every single item I had. I did that. And then I put, this is what I'm going to charge for that particular item. And then I would put, this is the, profits loss margin or whatever you want to call it, like the profit.
Yeah.
And then I did that for all the tiers too. So like, the $5 tier all the way up to the $1,000 tier, this is what I'm charging. This is how much it cost me. This is how much I'm making off of it, essentially, to go towards, paying back the project. So that was the biggest lesson that I learned in terms of just not shooting yourself in the foot when you're trying to set up, good Kickstarter rewards or stretch goals. Paper products especially are the best sort of rewards to go with if you can, find more things that have that, because the cost of those up front is usually very, very low versus the what you get on the back end. So that's one of those things. A lot of people end up offering some sort of paper rewards. Now that works a lot better for other Kickstarters, because if they're the artist, they can make art, for days and just make whatever it is that they want. I'm the writer, so I have a little bit of a limitation on what I can and can't use or get made. And if I do get something made, then I, have to pay an artist to do that. So again, now that's sort of starting to eat into the cost a little bit. But yeah, I would say that's the biggest lesson that I learned anyways.
Fair enough. I'm looking through everything here on the Kickstarter itself, and you've changed up the level. So now you're at 3 books.
Yes.
This is book number 3, and isn't this a double book, like 60 pages, right?
So the first 2 books in the series, each one of them is 60 pages of story with 12 pages of extras for 72 pages. This book is 90 pages of story with 6 pages of extra, so about 50%.
Gotcha.
Or I guess the total overall length's about 30-something%. So
all right. So before somebody cancels us for just shilling liking, so that was great insight on that, because there's something that people do say. I wouldn't have thought about it until I met Brian Ibbett years ago, and that's one piece of advice he gives is like, look, if you can do digital rewards, That's so
Digital.
much better than physical rewards.
Yep.
But then because with physical, you really got to make sure. Oh, I got to make sure I got shipping in there, taxes in there,
Yep.
some room to wiggle because sometimes quotes don't come back. I wouldn't have thought about that one either, but they don't come back exactly right because it's a quote. It's not a
Yeah.
promise.
Yeah.
Typically. So I like this year that you put on as part of your Kickstarter, and I want to know where you learned this. Like, if this was a suggestion to be successful. About halfway down through the page, you lead with the story and the artwork and get people hooked on the content, right? Then it gets down to the prizes, if you will, or the rewards. Before that, you have this pie chart that says, "Here's the estimated cost of everything." Public, I forget exactly how it's phrased. It's like almost 30,000. And so you brought down this pie chart of this cost, this cost, this cost, this cost. Why are you sharing that information?
So part of the research that I do when I'm setting up Kickstarters, because I start planning out Kickstarters about a year before it actually goes live. And part of the research I do is looking at other Kickstarters. That's where I get ideas for like fun rewards or stretch goals or things like that, but also on what people are doing on their pages. And one thing that I see a lot is people explaining, and Kickstarter suggests this too, explaining where the money's going to go. So like, if people are backing this project, this is how the money is split up or sent out or what it's being used on, that kind of a thing. And the idea with that is being more transparent and letting everybody know that, the money's actually going to something worthwhile as opposed to, just some guy just taking the money and pocketing it. Exactly. Because the one big thing with the Kickstarter, with any Kickstarter, is that there is a level of distrust when it comes to Kickstarters and they put it in the little fine print every time you back a project. There's no guarantee that you will actually get whatever it is that you've backed. I've been burned multiple times by different projects. I've seen other people burned many, many times by, projects. There was a story in a book I had read that somebody had suggested to me about The Art of Asking, that there was a person who did a Kickstarter for a book and they were successful. And then they kind of had a mental breakdown and they had all the books at their house, but they just wouldn't ship them out. And so people started to get agitated because, another thing you're supposed to be doing is giving constant communication and being like, hey, here's the update for this and this is what's going on. And there was no communication, and people would ask, where are their books? And they wouldn't get an answer. And eventually he would start posting updates of videos of him lighting the books on fire and saying, every time.
Yeah. I know that story. It became famous.
Every time somebody asks me for a book or where their book is, I'm going to light more books on fire. And so these other guys who were, backers reached out to him and basically set it up where we'll do everything for you. Like, just give us the books. We'll come and get them. We'll ship them out to everybody wherever they're supposed to go. You don't have to do anything. Just stop burning the books. And that's what ended up happening. Other backers had to step in and get like the books and then do it all themselves and pay to, ship all that stuff out, which I'm sure was not cheap.
He just took the money and burned it.
And he just took the money and burned it, basically. So it's one of those things where, you're trying to set people's mind at ease. There's even a section that's built into the Kickstarter, but they also recommend that you write a blurb, and that's the risks and challenges. So like,
I saw you have a little marker, story and then risks. Is that something that you did?
So I made a little marker for risks. And if you scroll down even further on the page, like Kickstarter has a thing built in for like risks and challenges and stuff like that too. And that's, again, just saying, hey, this is going to happen, trying to set people's mind at ease, because, I am in the hole deep at this point. Like, there's no reason for me to not make good on the promise because I've already started production. The book is pretty much done already. It's not 100% finished, but it would make no sense for me to not finish the book and continue on with this. Like, it just doesn't make any sense for me personally. In other instances, the books are not done and people are asking for money like upfront in order to pay for the costs. So again, the risks and challenges, the pie chart, I even made a little video talking about all that stuff. It's just to add more transparency and sort of just tell people where money's going. So that way there's a little bit more ease, putting people's minds at ease and, trying to build trust, that kind of a thing.
Awesome. Sarah Rose is changing her name again for me now. It's DragonCon Theater Lovers. So tomorrow night, Thursday night, you're doing Battle of the Fictional Musicals here.
I thought you were talking to me.
Not talking to
I was
Sarah
like,
because
what?
yeah, uh,
I was like, I think I am
part
doing
one.
something tomorrow night, but I don't know what that
Uh,
is.
so I hope somebody's gonna be there to help you because I got another show I'm doing. Actually, oh, and that username. Oh, that's the confusing part because I'm talking on my channel and she's talking about her channel, and that's she changed names. That's all. I blame her. I blame Dragon Rose. That's the next one. Dragon Rose, Con Sarah Lovers, whatever. Back to reality.
Okay.
All right. Here's some of the downfalls of Kickstarter, right? One, if you do not meet your goal, you do not fund.
Yeah, it's an all or nothing sort of thing where if I set the goal at $10,000. If on April 1st at 9:01, because it ends at 9 a.m. On April 1st, if I've raised $9,999.99, nothing happens. It's basically like a month of time was wasted. Kickstarter doesn't get anything. Nobody loses any money. I don't get anything. Nothing happens. It's one of the misnomers with Kickstarter too, because people will say, like a certain individual who's on this program with me right now, where they're like, "Oh, I can't back the Kickstarter right now. I have to wait till the paycheck comes or my taxes come in." And it's like
I want to make sure the money's there, man.
I get that, and I have to remind people who will not be named that
he had to remind me.
That's not how Kickstarter works. You could sign up day one or the very last day. It's not going to charge your card until the Kickstarter ends. The moment it ticks off, if it was successful, then it immediately starts to try and charge every card that's on there. So that's how that works. So there's a little bit of misnomer there because people will try and line it up to their paychecks, but ultimately that doesn't matter. It's, when the actual campaign ends is when they charge.
Speaking of, my taxes just came in, so we're
there
good.
You go.
I did pledge money, but honestly, I didn't know that. I did not know, because that's how I think is like for me, if I'm going to pledge money, I need to make sure the money's ready to go.
And lots of people do that.
If the taxes didn't come in, I had it to cover because I knew the taxes were coming, and that was always my plan, was to fund it through my tax return or whatever. But yeah, it's you don't realize that, so many people are hesitant because and then they forget, right? Oh man, it's April 2nd. I meant to pledge, and I got my money.
I'll get messages months after the fact, and they'll be like, "Oh, are you still doing that Kickstarter? I'd like to back it." It's like,
here's my Cash App.
I mean, I guess you could pre-order it now. You could send me money for it, I suppose. But but it's I was posted about all
for a second. Let's talk about for a second. If you get a message, somebody, "Oh, you still don't?" No. But if you would still like to pledge at a certain tier, here's the Cash App, and I need this information, right? Because you're not gonna, you don't have to say no to money. I mean, I get it. It's like, no, dummy, that was 3 months ago. It ended.
No, sure. No, that's usually what I say. It's like, it's not still running anymore. If you want to back it, just PayPal me or whatever the amount for the tier that you want to do, and we'll go from there. I've had that a few times in the past. Or the other thing that happens is that, when it tries to charge the cards, sometimes people's banks do not like that. And then the card will bounce, or they'll just deny the payment. And it has nothing to do with the person, because I know the people that are, it's their cards. So like, I told the bank not to do it, and they still did it anyways. So with Kickstarter, if a card bounces, they will try to get in touch with them for 1 week. Once it hits 1 week, it's locked out. They cannot fix it, so they can never fix it. So it's
done.
It's done. It's over and done with, which is weird to me because it doesn't change your amount funded on your page. So, for instance, the first Kickstarter, it says to this day that we raised about $10,500 or something like that. But we had a $1,000 backer who bounced, and we had a couple other $100 backers that bounced. So it was really, in the 9,000 or like upper 8,000, something like that. So but the screen says, 10,500, even though that's not what it was, but that's what it says. So that's another thing you have to deal with is the bounce cards. But in those instances when it happened, I got in touch with them and it was like, okay, well, it bounced. Just shoot me, PayPal this much money, and it's not a big deal because I'm just gonna put it all in a
Sure.
spreadsheet and deal with it myself anyways. In the end, after everything's all said and done, it's just there's a little extra step for those because I can't send them the survey through Kickstarter. I have to manually send them questions to do it that way. It's not a big deal. It's just a little extra.
But because your card balance is $5 a question just for my time, fool. So, but yeah, that is exactly what I was going to say. That's another pitfall of Kickstarter is that just because it says you made this much money doesn't mean you actually get that much money. Not even discounting their fees, right? But
because they take somewhere between 3 to 5%, and then the service that they use to charge the cards, because there's no other way to pay other than using
Stripe or whatever. They use another 3 to 5%. Right?
Stripe takes another 3%. Yeah. So in the end, you lose about 8%, which can add up pretty quick. But it's one of those things. What are you going to do?
It's just people need to be aware of it, right?
Yeah.
Because we think about this. I've only done one fundraiser myself, and it was through Indiegogo. Is what we did because we were like, well, we don't want to not fund because we weren't sure what was going to happen. Yeah. And so we wanted to be able to those people who did want to pledge and help that they still could, right? Mm-hmm. So you just got to do your research on those kind of things. Your array of rewards has gotten bigger and bigger, not just because there's multiple books now, but also as this is what we're talking about is monetizing your creations. Well, Charles, I make crochet werewolves, or I make pins, or I design bookmarks. Yeah. And then you need to find ways to join a community like ours over on Discord. So you could say those things because the rewards have changed every year. From the first year, I would call it traditional rewards, right? We got the book, we've got the jersey. This is year 2 jersey, by the way, but the jersey, the standard, your t-shirts, hats, bookmarks, standard stuff. Well, the second then you start doing the con circuit, and the short story is you met people, you liked what they were doing, you paid other small creators money to have their products be part of your rewards, including this year with the plushie werewolf.
Yeah. So one of the things I see one of the things that I do at conventions, and the one thing that I tell everybody to do just in general with the rest of their life, is networking. Yes, I mean, literally, this book wouldn't even exist without networking. Because we wouldn't have met you. Yeah. We wouldn't have gone to Dragon Con. We wouldn't have done our live show at Dragon Con. I wouldn't have met Shannon. And so it all just branches out from there.
I know. I got you.
Yeah, I know. Thank you.
And I'm still paying you to be a part of this project. Listen, my own favorite story you tell, you should be paying me.
I do pay you an exposure. You know what it's like to be an artist.
It is just canon that when Netflix or any other service license the rights to turn this into a movie or TV show, 10%. I get my 10%.
Yeah,
it's canon.
Mm-hmm. How long do the recordings last on Twitch?
It goes YouTube and Facebook, baby. I got you.
Dang. Don't worry
about it. Plus, pay, like, and subscribe over on Patreon. Yeah. So last week I actually talked about this, about how sometimes I just say dumb things and it sticks. And one of the early recordings we were doing, I'm just goofing, which Phil thought that's such a stupid Southern thing to say. But I was like, oh, we'll call it like and subscribe because it's lucky. And you're like, yep, that's it. And
jib jab jab.
Been that for 2 years now.
Jib jab jab.
Jib jab jab.
But so I go.
I'm a part of that too, by the way.
Yeah, whatever. So
whatever, maybe.
Whatever. So I go to conventions, and like I said, networking. And one thing that I always see at conventions is crochet. Like, people love crochet stuff. And to be fair, it's very cute it's fun. And they have all kinds of different stuff. So I would talk to various people and be like, hey, can you make me little crochet werewolves? And I finally found somebody at one of the shows. Adorkable Design, I believe, is her Instagram tag, but she made me a little crochet werewolf guy, and they come in different sizes. I even have the medium one you can't see because it's off to the side, but then I got the big boy here. There we go. But yeah, so
has anybody upgraded their pledges?
Yes, a few people did. Yeah,
I was one of them. I think I got the big boy, but I'm not entirely sure if I went.
Okay, I can't remember, but I know some people have.
I definitely upgraded though. I went from the little one to at least a medium, if not.
Yeah,
I didn't realize the big boy looked that good.
Big boy.
I could probably change it. Good.
You can literally change your pledge at any time. So the And then at conventions, I'm meeting other artists. So then it's like, okay, would you like to make prints for me? And then, we work out a deal there. Or, I had met one guy, he makes stickers. And I was like, hey, can you make me a werewolf sticker? So I paid him to make a werewolf sticker. So now that's, one of the stretch goals that hasn't been unlocked yet. And the idea also when I'm doing these rewards, now that I keep reworking them, because I've tried a few things and they didn't really stick or they didn't work or they were too complicated. Like I remember the first one I did, I was putting in like D&D campaigns because like, what can I do? What can Dennis do to add value to something? But nobody cared at all about the one-offs or any of that stuff. So I was like, all right, nix the D&D stuff.
Right.
And then the second,
I know I was part of that. Like, yeah, I don't really care about
and the
D&D,
second
man.
Kickstarter, we were going to do an audio version.
I kind of regret now because it's
not doing the
one-off. Yeah.
It is what it is. But then the second one, we had the idea of doing like an audio version of the book because, again, I know so many people who do voiceover and I do voiceover. But then that became a gigantic, colossal pain in the butt of trying to organize all these different people to record this, this stuff. And, people just stopped responding about it and it fell by the wayside. So it was like, okay, trying to rely on too many people to do a thing is a bad idea. It's better to try and do as much of it as I can by myself or get stuff done way ahead of time. So that's where the crochet werewolves came in. The miniatures that we have, I met a guy at another show who does 3D design or knew a guy who does 3D design. So that's how I got the miniatures, the statues. So again, it's physical products, but it's very easy for me to figure out the cost or talk to the creator and be like, okay, how do we want to do this breakdown, that sort of thing. But then the other part of it is after the Kickstarter is over, I can then take those to cons and put them on the table and have it as other merch. Because a lot of times at conventions, not everybody's interested in a werewolf comic. Sometimes I will just sell a pin or a print or whatever it is. So cute little crochet werewolves, people might just buy that or the statue or the mini. Or I've had people come out and say, hey, do you have any werewolf miniatures for my D&D campaign? That sort of thing. So that was kind of the idea by doing all these different rewards. And there's some that carry over from previous years, like the jersey and whatnot, because I think those are fun, or being able to die in the book, because again, I think those are fun.
I love that part.
Yeah. But then there's like new stuff. And every year I try, some new things. And sometimes not all the ideas stick. Like I had commissioned a Funko Pop and, the advertising says Funko Pop and all this stuff. But then I got the Funko Pop and realized it's way too much money for what it is. So then I would have to charge even more money. And I, in good conscience, could not charge that for what that was. I thought anyways. So it's like, okay, well, I'm just going to have this one then. And, if somebody wants to buy it off me at cost, I'm not even going to charge them anything for it, extra for it. Cool beans. Cause I was just like, no, I just don't like this. And then I had to end up reworking the rewards and trying to make it work and all that jazz.
Right. And that happens, right? And that's the work you put into it.
Yeah.
Now, so Kickstarter, of course, if again, of course, Patreon, we do all the talks, but there's where can they, and we're not ending the show by moving on to other ways of funding.
Sure.
So if somebody has more questions about Kickstarter specifically, how can they reach you?
So the two easiest ways to reach me would be either Instagram or just shoot me an email. My Instagram handle, you can either hit me up at Hivehead Studios, or you can hit me up at World's Most Okayest DM, which is probably not the easiest thing to find on Instagram. Or you can shoot me an email, hiveheadstudios@gmail.com. I should respond within a day or two. More than happy to help. If you're doing a Kickstarter, I actually have a book that somebody shared with me before I did my first Kickstarter. I share it with others, whenever I can. To try and, help others as well. So if you want that, I can give you a free copy of that digital PDF. It's fantastic. It has a ton of great information in it. And most of what I learned came from that book. So yeah. So if you need any of that stuff, let me know. More than happy to share it.
Perfect. So, and I know you're always willing to share that stuff. I know you've done a number of panels. I know that, you've done a lot of cool stuff like that. And of course, there's a book out there called All Artists Steal, meaning basically there's nothing new. We all kind of get influenced by. But I think somebody should write a book of great artists share. Hey, Joe. Joe got in with his little dinosaur emoji, whatever it is. Rawr.
Yeah, it's a dinosaur.
Yes, Dino. So because good artists share, because that's what we do at Dragon Con. That's what many of the stories you shared with me of people you've talked to at cons have been like, oh, well, what about this? Oh, hey, we go to this convention over here. You should probably try that. And it just, that's what community is about. So along those lines, botched. And let's transition to the merch right now. So doing physical merchandise is kind of I think, well, maybe not a dream of every digital media creator, but it definitely is a dream of many. I'd love to be able to sell. I mean, Joe and I have, thanks to you, not because you bought them, because you've ruined me with these jerseys, which by the way, you almost got me for the top tier of Kickstarter because of that God King crap you put on there. I was like, you did this for me. You did this just to tempt me.
I literally put that tier up as a joke. And I was like, if there's anybody who's going to back it, it would be Charles, just because
I stared at it for like an hour.
Because you already have the title of executive producer, but wouldn't it even be better to have another special title of executive producer and also God King?
Rock God King of Lycan Odysseys.
Yeah, whatever you want me to put in there, I put it in there. Other than owner.
Master, Dennis's master.
Yeah.
But no, yeah, dude, you're not wrong. I stared at it. I'm like, I got plans for my taxes. But is there bonuses or anything else coming up later this year that I could get in on? And I was like, no, okay. At the end of the day, I went with my regular tier, and I love, yes, I do, Joe. Shush. But yeah, I love my jerseys. I love the things. But back to the merchandise. So this is Joe and I went for Wise and Nerdy, which is going to be tomorrow night over on Wise and Nerdy on twitch.tv. Join Joe and I talk about fatherhood meets fandom, and we have a blast and joke around and just shenanigans, man.
Shenanigans is the easiest way to describe it. Yes.
So but we made a fun jersey, and these aren't super expensive for what they are, but they're not cheap. It's not like I can just make them for $5 each and sell them for $10.
No, they definitely have a price.
But so with merchandise, I would love. I've had some merchandise. I probably have some somewhere, but I've never sold a thing for any of my shows. Even though I've made some merch, I usually just give it away.
Sure.
Did you guys start? So you're probably going to bounce back and forth with Patreon and the merch, because the merch is all physical.
Sure.
Where did you make that jump to say, okay, we're going to invest the money, get this merchandise that we will have to carry ourselves or ship ourselves, because it's not drop shipping off like Cafe Press. I don't even know if Cafe Press exists anymore.
I have no
idea. You know, TeePublic, whatever those sites are, you know, it's not a drop ship where I'm getting $2. I'm paying $5 for this t-shirt. I'm buying whatever, 200 of them that I have to keep in my basement. How did y'all where did you cross that Rubicon?
So, you know, a lot of the stuff that we do is because of the Patreon. So it's sort of like a chicken and the egg kind of a thing.
Okay.
For us, the Patreon then allows us to do other stuff. So like the Patreon pays for our Dragon Con and all the other stuff, but it also helps us buy merchandise. So for instance, you know, Phil really wants to do this heavy metal looking t-shirt that says like Botch Podcast, but it's like that metal, you know,
that's old 80s Metallica, Pantera stuff. Yeah.
No, it's more like that. It's like almost illegible. Like you can't even read it, like that, like super spiky and like thorny and all that stuff. I don't know how to describe it. Phil doesn't.
He's a no fear brat from the 90s.
Kinda. So yeah. So like he wants to get those shirts made. So that's another sort of piece of merch that we're going to pay for using the Patreon.
All right. So let's come back to the merch.
Yeah.
Because the Patreon, right?
Yeah.
So at a certain point, so Spooks the Tuna says, please do. I'll insta buy it. Yeah. What level are you pledging for liking, Spooks? Huh?
I definitely don't have that bot shirt in the liking Kickstarter.
Yeah. Bosch needs a limited run brand new shirt to sell at Dragon Con.
So we tried doing as well. It wasn't tried. So the 1 year Dragon Con, we did do buttons that were like Dragon Con specific. The issue we had was that we put the year on the buttons thinking that would be a good idea. But the problem was
you didn't sell enough of them. And
we weren't selling them. We were handing them out at the door. But the problem was, I think it was Carl Dodge's kid or somebody's kid. I don't remember whose
Carl
kid
Dodge,
it was.
Jonathan.
Yeah. He just didn't hand them out.
Oh, I
So like,
auto corrected him. He said brew, and I corrected it to new because I thought he misspelled it.
oh, gotcha.
Brandon Brew. So all right,
Gotcha.
we'll come back to that, Joe. Thank you.
Yeah, because I was gonna say, yeah, because um, so we have bags of these pins that have a specific Dragon Con year on them, so we just can't get. They're buttons, I think, so we just can't get rid of them. They just sit in a box in the basement. It's like, well, what are you gonna do with them? So we have never done any other than that. We've never done any Dragon Con specific branded stuff, just because it's too. I don't know. It's too specific. You can't use it any other time. That sort of a thing. But in terms of merchandise, we try and bring everything. I'm always trying to think about what makes sense for Botched. Like I've had an idea that we haven't done yet for Botched. And that is, and I've seen it at a few shows, because again, when I'm at conventions, I'm always looking around at stuff. I would love to do. Have you ever seen the wall-mounted bottle openers? It's just like a square piece of wood with a bottle opener on it, and then there's something like laser etched or carved into the wood.
Jib, jab, jub. Yep.
Sure, jib, jab, jub. Exactly. Or we could do something more popular like Botched and put that on there and do those things. Because again, all you really need are to buy the little metal bottle openers and then the wood and get the laser engraving on it, which is actually not that expensive if you just know somebody who can do it. But we just haven't done it yet. And that's sort of how all of our merch happened. We did pint glasses because we thought that makes sense because we're kind of a drinking podcast.
And your logo at the time were 2 pint glasses.
Yeah, at the time. Yeah. And shot glasses as well. And I knew a guy who had a laser etcher, so he could laser etch that stuff on the glasses. And we still have a few that are left over, and we still take them to Dragon Con each year. Mostly what we have are t-shirts and stickers and magnets and buttons and things like that. It's things that don't take up a ton of space. The t-shirts are definitely the worst of that bunch because
I do the same thing with One EMS.
Yeah, and t-shirts are wonky in general because they take up a bunch of space, and you always never seem to have the size that you need at any particular.
Right, and then that middle size is the medium, large, and extra large. They go like that, and then you're left with
like mediums. I can't ever get rid of mediums, but
really.
Like large and extra large, those are the only two sizes that matter for the most part. Except then people always want like a 4 or 5 or 6XL, and it's like, okay, well, we didn't get any shirts that big, or we ran out of shirts that were that big because they end up costing extra on top of the normal shirt cost. And you don't know how long you're going to be holding on to them. So it's like, well, you're going to eat that cost up front. Maybe you'll make it back later, but you just don't know. It'd be cool. And you and I have talked about this. Having a place at Dragon Con, like a merch booth for all the different podcasts that are there, like that'd be cool. Because like Botched, we only sell merch during the live show. We don't have it any other time at Dragon Con other than
and that's the tough thing at these cons, because you know, doing a table yourself now at most cons, you have to have somebody there. I mean, you don't have to. Dragon Con, I think, will let you walk away from your table, but you get as an attending pro or guest, and like Botched as a collective, and even if it's okay, it's not just gonna be Botched. We're gonna get a list of specific podcasts who have merch I want to sell. It'll be this group of podcasters. Even doing that, it's still gonna be probably a cost to it. But then it's like, if you don't have somebody sitting there, you can't sell stuff.
Well, so it would even be interesting, in the vendor hall, if Dragon Con, because I don't think it was Regina that I talked to, it was somebody else. It was like the second in command last year that I spoke to. But it'd be cool if, we could get like a corner booth that just had, like, it's a big booth and just had, like, almost at rock shows where they have a wall of all the different stuff on it. Like,
that's what I was actually going to say, like a rock booth, but you wouldn't want it in the vendor hall. You'd want it over towards us, more or less.
I think you could do one or either one. I mean, the vendor hall would definitely have more traffic than down there.
True. Do you know they're doing a VIP pass for the vendor hall this year?
No.
And if you're an attending pro, you get one for free.
I mean, I always got one for free. It's called, you flash the badge, and they're
making it official now. There's QR codes. There's QR codes. But yeah, because it's only good for like 1 hour, and you can't transfer it, blah blah blah. But see, because I remember the lines, and the lines still can be crazy long, especially when the fire marshal does some dumb crap. But we won't get to that. That's not what we're here to talk about. So, all right, so that's some merch stuff. We'll probably come back to it, because at some point, you guys, everybody starts off with no listeners because you haven't even put a show out yet.
Yep.
And you start from episode 1
Mhm.
and you go, and you were in season 3, cat gut guitars and flying pirate ships.
That was season
And
1.
Was that the end of season 1 when I met you guys?
Yeah. So we spoke, or maybe it was season 2 when we started.
I think
talking.
it's season. I want to say it's season.
I think it was season 2 because I'd already met Ibit because that was 2017. I met Ibit at the beginning of 2017 at the Nerdtacular,
Right.
And
right.
I can't remember if 2018 was our first Dragon Con or if it was 2017. I'm pretty sure it was 2018. Well,
Man, I'm
I
horrible
remember.
time, dude.
It's so hard for me to remember which year was the first year we went.
I think you met me before you met Ibit.
Okay.
Because I think I told Ibit to look out for you and Phil because
okay,
we had signed you, or
Maybe.
we were signing you or something to the network.
Well, because I had met Ibit in 2016 at BlizzCon, actually.
Okay, so we met between that.
Yeah,
between BlizzCon and Nerdtacular.
Because I had met him before that. I forget how that ended up happening, but I'd reached out to him, or maybe it was Phil knew him or something. I can't remember exactly, but I know I'd reached out to Brian and he said, yeah, meet us at the bowling alley that, all this festivities are going on with. And because we had just launched the Patreon at that point, and we ended up making the same rookie mistakes that a lot of people make with Patreon,
which is
putting physical items on your Patreon.
Yeah.
And when I went to talk to Brian, he said, don't do that.
Yeah,
He's like, we did it for a very brief amount of time.
Yeah.
Like, it didn't matter. It didn't bite us in the butt or anything like that. But he's like, okay, so let's say one of your Patreon levels is a pint glass. Cool. Are they getting that same pint glass next month? What about the month after that? What about the month after that? What about the month after that? So, like, if someone's sitting at that level, you have to think, why are they sticking around at that level month after month after month after month? So physical items are a bad idea. T-shirts are a bad idea unless you're going to have like a different design every single month, which then you're just putting yourself through a ton more extra work. He's like, don't do that. Yeah. He's like, try and make it all as digital and low cost as possible to yourself. Otherwise, you're just going to make yourself crazy. And we still broke that rule later on. I think it was a couple years after that, where we did like a mystery box. Like every quarter, you'd get a mystery box of stuff from Budge, and it was like really weird because we were having trouble coming up with stuff to put in it. And I made beer can dice towers.
Yeah,
that people really liked, but the post office would destroy them half the time because they suck a lot.
Yeah,
but yeah, so like again, that was a physical item, and eventually we did away with it. So now everything is digital to my knowledge. Yeah, everything now is digital. Like we have art, we have making items for the show, bonus episodes, Discord, playing with us, like every other week, that sort of thing. But that's originally how the Patreon got started. Was we had all these different ideas for physical stuff, and then I went and sat and talked to Brian Ibbett and Scott Johnson, and they were like, nah, nope, bad idea. Don't do this. Don't do this. These are good ideas. Don't do this. Like that sort of thing. They were very nice about it. So yeah.
So y'all in the first year, you got to the point where you launched a Patreon, the first season, whatever you want to call it.
Mm-hmm.
How long did it take? So that means, I think we met mid-season 2 because I'm pretty sure it's before Nerdtacular, or maybe it's right before Nerdtacular even, because I was like, hey, Brian, these guys are going to try to find
you know what? We had
blah.
definitely met before Nerdtacular, and you know how I know that? Because
I said it, I'm always right.
No, because Phil and I made fun of you at Nerdtacular because we talked about the rock god of podcasting, and everyone was like, "Oh my god, why does he call himself that?" I can't remember who it was, but we all had quite a few jokes at that.
And what's on my jerseys, buddy?
Rock god of podcasting.
Who put it there?
Or rock god of pod. I can't remember which.
Who put it there?
I put it there because you paid to put admin.
I didn't ask for the last part. I asked who put it there.
I put it there.
That's right, baby.
Yeah,
you understand how that flows. All that being said,
I understand that in the survey that I put in the Kickstarter of what would you like on the back of your jersey.
How did you go from 0 patrons?
Yeah,
like what was the basic path? Because you learned the lessons. Oh, don't do the shirts and stuff. Okay, sure. Yeah. But you got to where it actually is gotten you to where you can do physical merchandise because the money is there? Was it not I'm not trying to toot a horn, but was it literally coming to Dragon Con and having a new live audience? Was it you took out an ad on the morning stream? What do you think it was that helped grow your Patreon?
Well, the morning stream ad that we put out is how we got on the Giant Size Team Up Network, because that's how Chris Wisdom heard about us. And then that's how you heard about us, because through Chris Wisdom.
Yeah, no, Wisdom was the recruiter for the network.
Yeah. So that's sort of how that happened. His co-host rebuilt it. Okay, whatever, Phil. You could have said work life, whatever, it's fine. So in terms of how it was it was definitely slow at first, and it was definitely people that we knew. Like the Patreon to start off were like wives or family members or stuff like that. Real small. It was like $20 here, 30, 40, 50, something like that. And then just slowly over time, it just builds up. You know, we would do Dragon Con. Well, our first year Dragon Con, when we asked who here has ever listened to our show before, only one person had raised their hand aside from, you guys. And it was one guy in the back who was one of our patrons, and I apologize, the name escapes me.
It was Bean, but nobody remembers him anyway.
It definitely wasn't Bean. But and then from that show, we ended up gaining a lot of new listeners. And every year, Dragon Con, sometimes we get new patrons from Dragon Con. Sometimes we get new listeners from Dragon Con, because it's always like a mix. People who have never seen us before, returning, viewers, that sort of a thing. But again, it's just sort of putting in the time, being consistent. Like it's one of the basic rules of podcasting is be consistent. Make sure the episode comes out every week and just keep on at it and, work it from there. And as we started doing the podcast and really leaned into the Patreon, we would put ads in the episodes for the Patreon, be like, hey, if you want to support us, go over, check out the Patreon. And we always, shout out a couple of items. And that's kind of what we've done over time. It's just built slowly over time. And then around 2020, it peaked a little bit. And then now it sort of like keeps going up and down as, people join, and then they go through like a financial hardship, and then they, fall out, and then more people join, and it's sort of like a constant ebb and flow, that kind of a thing. But the Patreon's definitely, unless you are already a celebrity, it's going to start off small, but over time, if you just keep at it, like most things, it'll slowly build up and build up and build up. So, yeah.
Now, early on, you did not offer the playing every other week, and so it was but it was mostly like a Discord community.
Yep, Discord, bi-weekly bonus episodes. We've always had those.
Okay,
being able to name items in the game, or monsters, or characters, stuff like that too.
What do you think builds your community the most? Just having people be able to listen to the show and then come into the inner circle and talk as fans and interact with the hosts? Or
I would say, in terms of building it or even growing it from within, like I feel like our Discord, because it does give the ability to communicate with other fans. It's a fairly active Discord, I would say. Like most of the time, we don't even really need to like be, involved in it. It's sort of like its own monster at this point, running itself. With that, you have the community, and you join it, and you start talking to people and having more fun, and people have just decided they wanted to donate more money over time, like that kind of a thing. Or, they'll they'll find the show, and they'll start listening to it, and they'll, be a patron at a lower level. And then they'll find out, oh, there's a bi-weekly, like game that I can play with these ding dongs. Okay. And then they'll, go for that level, or, stuff like that. So it all depends on the personal preference of the person, and just having rewards that are interesting or fun to people. Like our $20 reward, we commission different artists to do weird, crazy crap from the botch universe. Like I said, with the $10 reward, people get to make items, and sometimes people come up with some really creative and fun stuff that is good for the show. And then other times they make things that absolutely infuriate the players. And then we have to change the rules on what people can and can't add to the show, because it breaks everything.
I just want one example.
The goose, the unkillable goose. So somebody it was season 4 said they wanted this goose to be added, and it can never die. and the goose will always show up at the worst times and just ruin everything. So yeah, so this goose would follow them around, and if they killed it, it would just pop up again later, like someplace else. And so they would try and sneak. They'd be sneaking down a hallway, like trying to sneak up, and then it would just honk.
Yeah.
Or like, oh, we have to get this item. The goose would just fly in and get it right before they would get it and just fly away. And so it would just infuriate them to no end that this stupid goose was just following them around and making their life miserable. That we were like, okay, we have to remove the goose. And we also have to stop letting people make things that are so ridiculous and so overpowered that it makes the players, angry, that kind of thing. It's a little fine line.
But to that point, as a creator, you are keeping control of all of it. If you wanted to turn off certain levels today, you could, and you would. And that it's an example of a good idea going bad. Like the good idea is, hey, you built a great community. They want to play. They know you well enough to kind of come up with things to screw with you. Look, my favorite seasons were the ones where you took limbs away from Phil. Just anytime you took it, oh my God, it was the best. And Phil would just lose his crap over it. And so I think one of the items that I made, I wanted Phil to have, because when he messed it up, it would like take a limb from it.
Oh yeah, he never used it.
Then he didn't even use it because he's just a butt face.
He got it and then never used it.
He never used it. I hate you to this day for that, Phil.
So like they never found out what it did, because like they had no idea.
He never used it. He just had it in his inventory.
Like, throw it in there and forget about it. Yeah, that's a lot of times.
Yeah. So, but it was, you generated this interest that I can plant a bomb, if you will. I can play, but it's also a joke on them, and I'm just waiting for that delay to come through of when it's recorded and when it gets published, and that's a really cool thing that you've learned to monetize there.
And it doesn't always work out either. So like, for instance, with the last season, it was towards the end of the season, we had somebody who had given us a bunch of item ideas, and every time I tried to put them in the game, they just would ignore the thing that would give them all the items. So I was like, well, I can't just drop them out of the sky. So it got to the point where I just never got to put the items in the game, because they just would not take the bait and go do a thing that would give them items. So it was just like, well, I'm sorry, I don't know what you want to do, but it's sort of the thing. Like I can't, I tried, I tried my best, but they just won't go for it. They still want stuff. I don't know.
It's a thing there. So we talked about some merchandise, and you did talk about some of the pitfalls of, okay, you got older stuff, you sitting around. I think you guys do sales sometimes,
holidays and whatnot.
Yeah, those kind of things. You've retired a few things. Like there was first series 1 botch t-shirt that had the old logo. Yeah. And there were gray ones and there were black ones.
Yep.
And now I don't even think I don't know if you sell it as a retro thing, but you have a new logo and a new shirt out, which I don't have that one. I have the first one.
Sure.
Right. So how do you decide when to change it up?
Well, so the show is kind of a committee in that sense. Like I know, we wanted to remove the steins or the beer glasses off of the logo because, we figured, yes, while we drink on the show, we don't want that to be the main focus,
right?
That everyone's
Sometimes
seeing.
You change, right?
Yeah, and a lot of other podcasts have done that too. Like Drinking and Dragons, I think, is one. They changed their logo up. I think they changed the title of the show too because it was too much about the drinking thing. So when we had decided that we wanted to change the logo, I believe it was Phil sometime after that was like, well, now we need new shirts because we can't sell the old shirts because that's the old logo.
Right. So
and the old shirts are sitting in a pile in my basement across from the camera right now. And they're just sitting there. And at some point, I assume maybe we'll do something with them. I don't know. But yeah, so that was sort of the decision. And anytime we make any decisions, it goes through the whole team. Like not one person is making any one decision. The whole team gets to say like, I don't like this idea or I don't like that idea, that kind of a thing. The only time that's not the case is when I'm booking Airbnbs because nobody gives me any input anyways. So it's fine.
It's fine. Forget about it. So you've done art of the month. right? And
Yes.
Joe actually, when we did Pokemon Go podcast, he would design shirts like out of fun. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle, Ninja Squirtles or whatever it was, Squirtle
Sure.
Squad. He would. I don't know why he didn't do it now.
Okay.
Fatherhood and fandom, man. We could do that now, Joe. But one of the things that you have offered, Dennis, because you think outside the box. You know, it's not just well, it's D&D. It has to be dice related or this related.
We don't even have that.
Yeah, I know, right? You actually have at least at some point had a tier where you would call and read a bedtime story or do the outgoing voicemail message for patrons.
Yes. So there was a time, and I can't believe that we set it at $20, but this was back when $20 was like our highest tier for a while,
right?
Where we would do bedtime stories. So you could subscribe at that tier, and I think we had set it at some stupidly high frequency of like every week. Dennis will call you up on Zoom or phone, and he will read to you a bedtime story of your choosing. And we only had one patron who took us up on that. And then they sent me they told me to get Grim Fairy Tales. And then they sent me like Brer Rabbit as well, which I don't that it's an interesting book.
I've read it. I'm not okay.
And so I would get on a Zoom call and I would read the books to his kids and him and his wife. And we would do that for like an hour every week for a while until it sort of fell off. And because we never really got any other patrons that were interested in that level, we did away with it. Now, what was funny was after that, our friend Shannon was like, oh man, I really wish I would have backed at that level because I would have made Dennis read smut because, you know, I have narrator voice. So she was like, oh, it would have been great for you to read just dirty, dirty stuff. And I was like, okay, well, you missed out on it. So yeah, so that was one of the tiers that we retired, and then we replaced that with art. And since then, we've added 2 or 3 tiers above that now, where like $30 is the executive producer level, so you get access to the episodes early, and you get your name read at the end of every single episode, and it goes in the show notes. And sometimes we'll send questions specifically to the executive producers to give like feedback or input, things like that. And then above that is the $50 tier where it's the biweekly game where you get to play with us. And then we have sort of a joke tier that Phil added, which was the God King level, which is like $100. And you really don't get anything for it aside from we call you the God King at the end of every episode. And I think you get a special color in the Discord. Again, it was more of a joke, but looking at other Patreons, some people have tiers that literally say, I don't have anything for this tier, but feel free to back it. And people do. I'm like, okay.
All right.
Whatever. So, yeah.
You never know how it's going to work out.
You never know.
Promotions. So we talked about, and I want you to talk about a little more in detail. So you grew your income by spending some money, right? But, so I know you bought an ad on the morning stream.
Yep.
Which is, I think was what, $30 for them to talk about it once or something like that.
Well, no, back then it was like $5 a day. Now I think it's $20 a day, but back then it was only $5, if memory serves me. So we bought like a week's worth of ads, if memory serves. So like $20, because I think they only do their show 4 days a week. Phil would know better than I do. So yes, we just put the ad out there for like $20, and they have a ton of different listeners. And you know, through that, there's a thing that we've been doing since then, and whether or not it results in anything, hard to say. But I like doing cross promotion with other podcasts. So, for instance, with the Lycan stuff, anytime a podcast has me on, or shouts out the Kickstarter, or reviews the book, or anything like that, you know, we shout out their podcast on our podcast because then it's a little bit of cross promotion. And then there are other times where podcasts will reach out and they're like, hey, we just want to do cross promotion, and we'll just exchange like intros, basically. Like we shout out their show, they shout out our show, that kind of thing. Or we've even done crossover episodes where, you know, we'll record with that entire group and then we'll release them on both feeds, essentially. So everybody can hear the different stuff. We've done that before too, and that's apparently a pretty common thing as far as promotion goes with podcasts, and that's not even anything that really costs any money. That's free promotion. We've tried Facebook ads, and Instagram ads and that sort of a thing. And from what I've seen and researched, unless you're paying big money for ads on Kickstarter for Instagram or Facebook, they don't really do anything. Like if you're spending thousands of dollars, yeah, then you'll probably end up seeing a little bit of a return. But if you're just spending like a few $100s, it doesn't really amount to anything. So it's not really worth it. So we usually try and find more of a low key version of advertising to just try and get the show's name out there. And I've done other research on things, and there's a thing that we started to do and it was successful, but we have a hard time keeping up with it because none of us are very good with social media, and that's what is it? It's called targeted engagement.
Okay.
And the idea there is you would be on your show's account, whether it be Instagram, Reddit, or whatever it is, and you would be just interacting with people, not pitching your show, not advertising your show, just like commenting, putting out funny memes, whatever. And then people would just see, Botch Podcast responded with this and it was funny. And it's like, oh, what is Botch Podcast? And then they click on it and takes you to the podcast. And we did note when we were actually doing it, and the idea is you do it for like 20 minutes a day on each of the platforms or whatever, and you'll grow an audience that way. And when we were doing it, we were noticing like 50, 100 more people listening every week that we did it. But again, it's one of those things where we're all busy and we suck at social media. So it kind of fell off. So it's another one of those things where it's like, hey, just got to be consistent. Keep at it.
Right.
So, but there are lots of different ways to do advertising or promotion that don't cost money, as well as just throwing your money at one of the big name companies and hoping that it, works out all right. Because, you can do Spotify ads too, but we didn't really notice anything with the Spotify ads, and you can't even advertise on other podcasts through Spotify. You have to like advertise through like music or something. Like it's weird how they do it on Spotify.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. So all said and done, what do you think you haven't done yet to monetize your creations that you'd like to do?
What haven't I done yet? Well, so one of the things that I would like to do in the future at some point is turn Botched into a comic book, because I think that would also be fun to take to shows.
Yeah.
Basically just literally taking the episodes and just turning them into like short comics, like 18-page comics. Like we could literally do an episode per comic or something like that. I think that'd be fun. That's another way to monetize. You're just taking what you have and turning it into a different medium. You and I have talked about, for the book anyways, it'd be fun if it got picked up and turned into a TV show or something like that. And that's another way, you can monetize. Another thing we've done is having guests on the show, and that's, hit or miss in terms of, what it ends up turning into, because again, then it depends on, will that person then shout you out or share it or any of that stuff. So you never know, but it's always fun anyways. And it's good networking. But I would say those are really the only two things I can think of off the top of my head. In terms of monetization, because the other option you have, we did it once, we've never done it again since then. Thanks, Charles. Is joining a network, because sometimes, shows can do that. You join a podcasting network, and the idea behind that is that, you're kind of helping each other out, or maybe you'll get some clout by being associated with one of those shows, or your show will be listed on their website, that kind of a thing. We just haven't had an interest in doing it since, Giant Size Team Up now.
Look, we got you off of what was that free streaming service? That was crap.
SoundCloud.
Oh my God.
Yeah, we were on SoundCloud.
You're welcome. I got you off of that.
It also was not free. That was a paid service.
You pay for that crap?
We did, yeah. And then we switched to Blueberry, and now we're on Anchor.
Yeah. And I
that's the other way you can monetize, by the way, stuff like Anchor, because you can just insert ads. And it doesn't result in a ton of money unless you have a lot of listens. Basically, the more listens you have, the more money you generate. But it's also a very easy lift in terms of just adding money into your show.
It has definitely worked well for me. in the past. Patreon's been the best.
Yeah.
But Anchor, when you bring a new show there, you can make some decent money for a little while. Then
Mhm.
there's some arbitrary number that they cut it off at. Because Bosch, you guys, when we went to Anchor, you got an ad at the same time. The whole network went to Anchor when it 1st came out, and we all got ads. And you were at the, I want to say 500 to 1,000 downloads an episode at that point, and y'all were making good money, and then it got cut off. And like, that's weird, because my smaller shows, all of us by download numbers were smaller at that time than you guys were. We were still being able to do the ads for months.
Yeah.
But then I found that to be true with Pokemon Go podcast when we did that one. Anchor cut us off very fast. So you just don't know. The whole rambling ass story is you just don't know.
You just don't know. So you kind of just roll with the punches and, you know, try and do whatever you can, whenever you can. Anything new pops up, just kind of keep your ear to the, ear to the ground, and just anything new pops up, give it a good look. Make sure it's not scammy or anything like that, or you're not losing your IP or anything, and go from there.
All right, and with that, because I got more questions, we'd go all night.
Well, yeah, you and I do this all the time.
All night long.
All night.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Go to likeandbook.com to support your comic book.
Yes, please.
And where else can they find you?
So you can find me on my social medias at World's Most KSDM or Hivehead Studios. We also have a Patreon, which Charles and I do a podcast for mostly every week. It depends on how long it takes me to get with Charles about re-recording things, or not re-recording, but recording new episodes. So that is over at patreon.com/Hivehead Studios. We only have one tier. It's $3, and you get access to the Discord as well as those podcast episodes. And where else can you find me? Email me at hiveheadstudios@gmail.com. And yeah, mostly it's just the Kickstarter. It's running until the 1st of April. So if you're going to back it, do it now, not later.
Do it now.
Yeah, do it right now. And we are, last I checked, I think, I have it up here. What am I doing? Less than $1,300 away from fully funding the Kickstarter. So we are super close. So share it with your friends, your local comic shops, your family, your friends, your coworkers, all that jazz. Those are the best ways to find me. And of course, Bosch Podcast.
Yeah, that little upstart. I'll do so though. Yeah. And check me out. Linktree is our GOP42. That's linktr.ee. And so it didn't have to be capitalized. It is on the screen, but it's our GOP42. And it's got all my shows, all my cool stuff there. Trying to think. I know you got cons coming up. Give us the next con you're going to be at.
In April, mid-April, I will be at Big Lick Nova. And then the following weekend, I'll be right here in Gettysburg at Creature Feature, which is one I'm most definitely looking forward to.
Very cool. Yeah. All right. Next week is going to be the Highlander show from TV's Travis. And I know he's got co-hosts over there. They're going to come and do a takeover of this stream. And it's going to be an episode of that podcast. And it seems like it's going to be a whole lot of fun. In 2 weeks, I didn't have my chart up. I've got somebody cool coming on in 2 weeks. And then right after that, we're going to have the Theater Kids takeover by... I don't know why I keep calling it Theater Kids Takeover. It's not what it is. But the Dragon Con Theater Lovers group is going to do the fictional musical battle that I cannot find the title of it again here. But tomorrow night, they're going to do part 1 on twitch.tv/DragonCon Theater Lovers. And then part 2 will be in about 3 weeks here on this channel. So check all that out. Thanks for coming out. And again, come back and make this channel like you make Dragon Con your con. We want you to bring your content and come participate. Bye, everybody. Be awesome.